We go. Hi, welcome to TruthStream. We're here today with esteemed author and world adventurer Brad Olsen, and of course Joe Rosati. How you doing today, Brad?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. Good to talk with you as we did just off camera now about some really important things going on in the world and different parts of the world and all kinds of out there stuff and this really amazing moment in history we find ourselves witness to.
Absolutely. Well, we met, Scott and I were down at a conference last year, 2021 in Mount Shasta, and unfortunately we couldn't make it this year. So we're going to go into that, a little bit about Brad's background and plenty of other things that are going to unfold in this conversation. So wherever you want to start, if you want to start a little bit about, maybe a little bit about your history and how what inspired you and some of the moments that shaped you to become an author and a world traveler. So maybe start there.
Wow. Okay. How about the 30-second elevator pitch?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I traveled the world and all 7 continents, and all the mysteries of the world have always really fascinated me. I started my career as a travel writer and then got into these esoteric subjects about a decade ago, just because I'm so fascinated with everything that has been hidden from humanity. And keep in mind, the word occult really means that which is hidden. So there's so much of this out there. And boy, I put together a 3-book set, and the third one, Beyond Esoteric, Escaping Prison Planet, just came out about a year ago. And it's amazing to me how people are finally really starting to understand all this stuff and see it coming true in real life. And it actually changes the nature of the word from esoteric to exoteric once everybody starts to know it. So that's why these subjects in these interviews are really, I find them interesting. And I watch a lot of these myself with other authors and personalities like yourselves on the YouTube. So yeah, just been traveling and curious about the workings of the world, and had the great opportunity and honor to be able to live even many years overseas and go to some very far-flung places.
Very cool. How about a little bit of an update on what the Shasta experience was for you this year? Go from there.
Well, yeah, sure. Rob Potter puts on the Mount Shasta Summer Conference, and I was actually up there in March, and I'm heading back in September for Shalimar's Living Truth Summit in Mount Shasta. So I just love it up there. It's only 4 or 5 hours from where I'm at right now in California. So great drive up there, and just to be with that whole Shasta community. So this was a really great conference. There were no fires or smoke like the 2 years before when you guys were there. And so that was kind of a nice feature, but really great lineup of speakers, including Alex Collier, who's actually one of my personal heroes and has been for 30 some years. And many things he spoke about long ago, not only are coming true, but also that he has had such a long track record of doing it. And he's kind of, I call him the reluctant Messiah. He only comes out a few times just because he's friends with Rob Potter, and he's going to do his final act in the Orlando, Florida conference, which I'm also a speaker at, coming up in middle October. And might want to catch Alex on his last hurrah for this great event. And he is super smart and very, very intelligent. And
so is that his last tour, if you will, or?
That's right. Yeah. He says his contactee is, what's her name, Moria. And he was kind of mumbling out loud, Moria told me this would be the last year I'd have to do it, but no, I got 1 more year. She said 2 more years, and he wanted to retire now. So right. He's a funny guy and very humble, and I love him a lot. And so great to always be at a conference with him. We just really connect on a mental and intellectual level, because when he talks, I'll tell you, it just quiets the room. Everybody really wants to hear, and everything he says, and he's holding every word like a fine glass of wine. You just want to savor that sip and every word you hear.
Reluctant Messiah, is that a Richard Bach Illusions reference?
Yeah, I think it's got a couple different references, or The Life of Brian.
It's a great book. I don't know too many people that that have read it, but I mean, it's a great book. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where are
So-
you guys based out of? I didn't even ask.
Well, we're up in the Washington State, greater Puget Sound area, if you will.
Nice.
We may not want to disclose our exact location.
Sure.
But yeah, this is our first interview, and the reason it's called TruthStream is Scott and I both have Airstreams. His is a
Right
60.
behind you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's right here.
yeah. His is a 69. Mine's a 73, and the last two we've shot at a friend's house. But now we're ready to unveil it. There's just we just wanted to get a couple things dialed in and make sure that everything's set up properly. So yeah, we're up here in the Washington State area, and I started a podcast called Reflection Pool that's very focused on regional. And I thought, yeah, I'd love to do, more guests such as yourself, but I wanted to do that with Scott, because part of me getting red pilled in this whole movement over the last, decade, really, for me, it was learning about 911 and seeing films like Loose Change. And Scott would say certain things, and not that I didn't believe him, but I'm like, well, where else can I get this information? So we just did an interview with Ishmael Perez, and that went really well. We're stoked about that. And they really related on certain levels. And, it was cool to hear Ishmael tell me that Scott's not crazy. so that was cool. And he's been studying this and looking into this stuff a lot longer than me. And I like to, be the go-getter. And after working with Nicholas Vignamin and bringing guests to his show, I just felt like, wow, I've met a lot of great people such as yourself. And it's like, Scott, you know what? It's time. So that's kind of how TruthStream started. And anyway, care to expand on any of that?
Well, that's kind of it. He dipped his feet in the shallow end for a little while, and then a lot of the stuff I'd been talking about just started to become confirmed. I think, we're living in crazy times. We're seeing a lot of crazy things, and, it just clicked. But, I think this might be the most exciting time in human history.
It sure is. And I'm glad you brought up 9/11, Joe, because everybody has their wake up moment, and mine would also be 9/11. And so people older than us might say JFK's assassination. Nothing made sense in the Warren Commission, and nothing made sense out of 9/11. And now it could be this whole scamdemic thing, and everything about it just doesn't make any sense. So people are waking up at their own speeds. And once they get that red pill moment, then they open up the box of esoteric and see that, boy, the well is very deep. And there are so many things that have been withheld from us and are now just coming to the fore. So I look at it as kind of a responsibility that people like yourselves and me have in unpacking all this stuff and talking about it and trying to make sense of it, because so much is really just coming out right now. The well is just gushing as a geyser. And how do you put a coffee cup on top of that? You can't. So the dam is really cracking, and this whole umbrella of disclosure subjects are starting to come out.
Yeah, so 911 was your red pill moment. Tell us a little bit about the trajectory that you had from that, and what unfolded for you, and what you started digging into after that event.
Well, that was really the loss of faith in the current government, that they couldn't figure it out, but people with a couple videos and some logic, like the Loose Change videos, as you mentioned, that they can put it together, but this commission can't, much in the same way that JFK assassination was all rigged from the top to the bottom. So once you start to lose faith in the whole institution called government, and it's such a wide umbrella, there's so many things that government is comprised of, but once you see that there is corruption at the highest levels, so much so that they could cover up something like a 9/11 and start a war and steal the oil and all the other motives, now we see in retrospect what it was all about. You kind of have to take anything that the government says with a grain of salt. And now we have contested elections, and so much that has to do with the very fundamental basic institutions that we've believed in for so long are now up for question. And so it took me about 1.5 years, 2 years into a post 9/11 to really say, no, building 7 came down, no
Yep.
plane hit it. And the list goes on and on and on. And then you see what money was being taken out of those trade center buildings. And it wasn't just 1, 2, and 7, it was building 6. And one of the bank heist, Brinks trucks got stuck, but they got the goal out instead and they left the truck. So many little details that just show it's a scam from top to bottom.
They're brazen. They're brazen about it. It's like all the Navy SEALs associated with the Bin Laden raid, or, you know, they met their end, and just one thing after another. It's so incredibly obvious, but people are still taking the bait. I think fewer are taking the bait. I mean, it's gotten so absurd now that, you know, I've had a lot of people, you know, kind of come around pretty readily these days.
As they should. And
well, the definition
of up their own speed, right?
The definition of woman, the definition of recession, you know, some of these things, it's so in your face. You really have to want to be blind to it, I think. Yeah.
It's more of an IQ test than many other barometers we could put towards it. But
yeah, I was going to say, like, what was the amount that was taken from under building 7? Wasn't it trillions of dollars that disappeared?
In gold bullion.
Yeah.
And it was the day that many debts were coming due and that this gold was being transferred, I believe, mostly to the Chinese. And so they got scammed, and they claim quite a bit of ownership over this country right now. This is another thing that is going to really wake people up, and they want to get a return on their investment. And I've known Chinese, I've had Chinese landlords, and they're pretty ruthless in business. You don't want to cross them, and they will do whatever they can to make that deal work in their favor. So they have a lot of investments in America that they don't want to just see go poof and evaporate. No, they want to collect on them. And one of the areas of this country in which they have their sights on is where I'm at right now, and that's California. Yeah. And I lived in San Francisco for many years, and I can't believe it. Every time I go back there, it's more and more and more Chinese are moving in. So I know that's one city they very much like. But it's a multi-pronged attack, you see, because having this Federal Reserve System and the wealth concentrated among these European banking families is who primarily owns and runs this Federal Reserve, including the Jesuits and the Vatican are big players in ownership of this corporation. And the beginning of my book, I start out with the new fascism, and in a chapter called Neo-Fascism, where I describe how this country became a corporation in the Act of 1871. And this is another little bit of history that we never get taught in school. But once you find out that your name being in all caps, you're chattel, you are part of this corporation. We are used as collateral against the debt of this country.
And yeah, maritime law, and ideally we're supposed to be on common law.
Right.
Yep. So
the Chinese own a ton of Canada and an alarming amount of, an ever increasing amount of Africa as well. It's just happening right under our noses, but it's really easy, you know, from a superficial level to identify the enemy, but then you always find out there's a deep state operating everywhere. There's this cabal and its tentacles go everywhere. It's not just the Chinese. We've got the same paradigm happening everywhere. And Taiwan, I understand there's an awful lot of biolabs there, much like Ukraine, that have to be dealt with. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It looks like it's queued up for the very next thing on the stage. But, same players everywhere. Same global.
Yeah. Just like the Who song, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. People, they're multi-generational, so they'll pass it down through these families that go all the way back to the Middle Ages, the Pessoa family and the Orsini family, the banking families of the Renaissance. Their descendants are still very, very powerful players in all this. And in my other 2 esoteric books. I get into the banking families, mostly in modern esoteric. And the majority stake of our Federal Reserve is in Europe, are these old European bankers. And then, of course, there's a whole lot of Freemasonry tied into it at largest, highest levels of our government. There's quite a bit of Freemasonry, fraternal brotherhood kind of thing, just supporting your friend. And we all know how, and there's other groups that also fraternize among themselves. We don't have to name names, but I think you get the idea. And so they gravitate towards the top, and they are very much seduced by this power and control where money's not even enough anymore. They want to run the show, and they've been doing it for a long time. And so quite frankly, they're getting a little cocky because nobody's ever really given them much resistance. But now we're starting to fight back a bit. The Great Reset. I love the Bansky new painting he did, and a little girl's up on a step ladder and she crosses out the Great Reset and she spray paints the Great Resist.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
They will own nothing and they will be very unhappy. They will own nobody, it says, and be very unhappy. So they're not going to win. They're not going to go for it. People don't want to eat bugs. People don't want to own nothing and be happy. I mean, they're delusional. They're cocky in thinking that they could just push this in on us. But people are rising up around the world. And this is what gives me good optimism that it will be a people revolution, just like disclosure, which we've known for decades that we're being watched. And there's all kinds of high technology that's at play here and classified as top secret. Disclosure, much like the revolution, well, I love that old saying, will not be televised. Consciousness is the revolution and disclosure is from the ground up. That's all of us just becoming aware to it. Like we said, the red pill moment, and then just realizing you can't count on this government or these people in power. They're just puppets and set up to lie to us. And whatever their master says off the teleprompter, they're going to read, just like the prostitutes on TV. It's just ridiculous. And so once you see it, it's really the whole Pandora's box. Once it's open, forget about it. You're not going to go back. I could present all the fake evidence to you guys about 9/11 and you'll still shake your head and be like, no way, dude. Nope. And so that's a way that these kind of people out themselves when people really stand or say, it's not my pay grade to figure that out. Like Noam Chomsky, that was his excuse on 9/11. Oh, we can figure out everything else, but nope, can't figure out 9/11. Above my pay grade, he said. So you're done. You're out. Once you figure somebody out and they got an agenda and they're lying, to me, they're gone.
It seems like we've all been the frogs in the pot, and they've been slowly bringing the temperature up. But it would seem that the Trump effect kind of forced them into a bit of an acceleration. And I think in that acceleration, it became a lot easier to see what was happening beneath the surface. What do you think?
Well, it's all happening below the surface. That's the way they've operated for millennia. Here's an example I give. People like history, they can appreciate this. Think about the time of the pharaohs, thousands of years ago. Here's a man who was a living God to his people, and he was worshipped as such. Then the power shifted over to the Roman Empire, and the Caesar of Rome became a living God. He was still a man, but he was revered as a god. And now what do you have? The Pope who's in Rome with an ear to God. So this is a control structure that has been in place for thousands of years. And it is always the elite controlling the masses. So of course they're not going to tell us everything. Why would they? They don't want us to be smart. If we were, then we'd know that the game is over. It'd be like Toto pulling the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz, and we'd see it's just a little old man working the control mechanisms. And that's what I think the great resist is going to be all about, is seeing who these controllers are and how they've been moving the levers and controlling mainly the economy in this way for 1,000 years. Because what do we got for money? Fiat currency?
Yep.
That's based on nothing. I mean, come on, it can't be more of an illusion than that.
Well, they printed how many $1 trillion? Is it almost $30 trillion in the last couple of years?
The gig is up and everybody knows it. And the petrodollar just ended effectively.
Yeah.
You know, it's insane.
Well, I think what's really tough, because I grew up. It's funny we bring up Jesuit. Scott and I actually met at a Jesuit high school, but my mom and my dad passed a year and a half ago. But it's really hard when your parents are Catholic, Christian, to let them know that the Pope of all people is not who they think he is. But when actually Scott and I were with last summer down at the Shasta event, we shot a music video, my music video Freedom Now, and in there I put pictures of the building that is in the shape of a snake that's at the Vatican, and when people see that, when I showed that to my mom, it's really undeniable. And so there's certain things that we can show to people. I mean, anybody can look that up now. If you Google snake building Vatican, I mean, you look at the inside and you see the crucifixion, and from a distance, Jesus's hair looks like in the shape of a snake, and shattered into 1,000 pieces behind him,
fangs sticking down,
and then the church itself, the eyes. I mean, of all the images that they could build a church, or the models they could build a church after, why would they pick a snake? And that's where you got to start connecting dots and looking at things. So, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Is that not like such a red flag? There it is. Thank you.
I got it in my book, a whole montage, so people can see it close up. That, yeah, why are you creating the inside of the building is on top to look just like a snake head? And look at this motif that's inside that the Pope sits below. It's like Lucifer coming out of a furnace of fury. And there he is with the ear to God. See, once again, the symbolism is so thick in all this. And once you start to unpack it all, you see that it's just all part of this control mechanism, and that it is, in many cases, hidden in plain sight. Who's your real God? Oh, you looks like a snake. There you go. Thanks for the tip off. Yeah, this is called the revelation of the method in occultic terms, that in a way, in our free will planet, they have to reveal what they're up to. If we don't get it, then we're just ignorant sheeple. And so you're not meant to get it. But if you do see through it, then aha moment, another red pill.
Yeah, that's why we got to talk about it. I love that you had that in there, and that wasn't planned at all. So that was awesome. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, like the name Barack Obama, the assumed name of Barry Soetoro.
Yeah.
It means, lightning from heaven, light bearer, Lucifer. Basically, it's, I mean, of all the names you could pick, that's kind of an interesting one, I think.
I'm from Illinois. I grew up in Chicago, and that's where the Obamas are from.
Boy.
And it's part of the state law that if a descendant passes away, they have to name their child by their birth name. And Michael Robinson's mother just passed away and named her son the heir to her estate. And Michael,
that was real. Someone said, "Oh, that's been debunked," but so that is really what happened.
Yeah, that's really what happened. He's a dude.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about how much people's heads are going to explode when a lot of this stuff comes out, that we had a gay president, and
yeah, a transsexual
was Victor Victoria.
Right.
Well, hey, if you don't believe us, ask Joan Rivers. Oh, wait, she died 2 weeks after mentioning it.
Yeah.
Well, even the prime minister of, I have family in New Zealand, and I'm, trying to let them know what's going on. And, the jab down there is like 97%. And, I'm letting them know, certain things, and they're not buying into it. It's like, there's a video of the prime minister of New Zealand walking, and there's complete twig and berries in the video. You're just like, wow, that's undeniable there, dude. So I mean, yeah, and that's part of it. I mean, and I learned this from Scott, actually. When society is on the verge of collapse, there's a huge rise in the transgender movement. Is that correct in saying that?
The fall of every empire is preceded by.
That's right. That you get to the point of total debauchery, and we saw this at the fall of the Roman Empire. It was at the end of the Egyptian Empire, and it's coming into play now. but I'd say there's a double purpose here, and they love to have multiple vectors every time they do something like this. And we know that there's a depopulation agenda right now. So you can take these people out of the breeding pool, suggest or give them the opportunity to do whatever they want to do, snip off their family jewels when you're a kid. You can't get that back. Or promote the homosexual agenda. They can't have kids. So any way to take people out of the breeding pool is very much advanced right now. But I tell you one thing that Alex Collier said at the conference a year ago with you guys were there, was that any culture that aborts their children for several generations, which we're coming into now since the beginning of Roe versus Wade, decades ago when we were little kids, any civilization that does that for a prolonged period of time will be on a very steep decline, and it will mark the end of that human 1.0. The unwackadood people are going to be the organic humans. We will be the purebloods, and in many ways, the younger generation who didn't submit to that is the hope for humanity. It's plain and simple, that stark of a reality, but that's where we're heading. I mean, the line has been drawn, you guys, and we have crossed the Rubicon. It's not that it's coming. It's not like David Icke said that these guys who are plotting all this are sitting in their boardroom, smoking their cigars and planning this world domination agenda. It's here. We can see it for its unbridled attempt at global power grab right now. And so I'd be very suspicious in your audience who's listening to this of anything they tell you off the television. Consider it to be pretty much the opposite of what it really is, because it's bought and paid for, just like the judges and the police and many of the governors and Congress is corrupt to the core. I mean, these guys are in the pocket. They all went to Epstein Island, and they've been blackmailed with the honeypots. So we're living in a system that is extremely compromised at the moment, and desperate people do desperate things, and they are desperately clinging to power, and they will not stop at any dirty trick. So I'm thinking a false flag on the level of 9/11 is coming down the pike.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Even as soon as this fall, they have to somehow derail this midterm election, or just the thievery will be so blatantly obvious that everybody's going to lose complete faith in the electoral system.
Yeah, the inversion, the constant inversion. Did you see the Gavin Newsom ad targeting Floridians that need to move back to California where they value freedom? I mean, are you kidding me? It's
Everything's opposite. Yeah, inverted. Good word.
Yeah, always the inversion. And it's like the Baphomet situation with the trans agenda.
Right.
It's just symbols, lots and lots of symbols.
How come Antifa didn't tear down the Baphomet statue in Oklahoma City?
Exactly.
I'm glad to see the George Guidestone's gone, but
Yeah,
Antifa had a shot at that. Why didn't they tear that down? Right? Why are they going after former presidents, including Abraham Lincoln? I thought he was pretty much a hero to some of these people for,
Right.
But this is a page right out of 1984, right out of George Orwell. When we don't know our history anymore, that whatever the new generation is taught is going to think that's their history.
Yep.
History is one of the most edited and altered pieces of documentable history, I'll say in quotes, that there ever was. Voltaire, the great philosopher in France, said that history is the Mississippi of lies. It's just so distorted. And what do they say after wartime? That history is written by the winners.
Yep.
right.
So World War II history, which I do include quite a bit in here, including what really happened down in Antarctica in 46, 47 during the Battle of High Jump. And I'm probably going to do another conference presentation on that next year about all the information I found. I do know where the base 211 is, the New Berlin base.
Oh,
That part of New Schwabenland. Yeah. And I do also have a map of it, as well as recently there's the map of New Schwabenland. And I'll tell you, it's right by the Schumacher Ponds these geothermal ponds that never freeze. And then these maps of the U-boats that were able to negotiate under the ice. And in my presentation, The Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica, I'll show slides of what Antarctica looks like without the ice. And it's basically two continents, Western Australia or Antarctica and Eastern Antarctica. Eastern Antarctica is 3 billion years old. It's an original chunk of Pangea that broke off from Australia, India, and Southeast Asia and Africa, and then moved into its present position. But without the ice, there are fjords that go for hundreds of miles. So if you're able to negotiate that under the ice, as well as being the most volcanic continent in the world, you have the propensity for these large under ice dome areas that would be sheltered from the cold and would be heated by geothermal activity. So boy, I tell you, if there was ever a place to hide on planet Earth, it'd be under the ice in Antarctica or the deepest depths of the ocean.
Wonder if Ghislaine Maxwell thought about that, because she's a sub pilot. Would have been a perfect place to get away. What she picked, Connecticut or something for the
yeah, where she got
Hideaway Ranch.
Yeah. Hey, you know, there is a submarine route that goes out from Lake Geneva. So that is meant to be the final escape route of the cabal, who are mainly centered in Switzerland,
right?
In the community. And I've looked at it on Google Earth, just outside of Zurich, Switzerland. Look for the community called Zug, Z-U-G. And it's just miles and miles and miles of palatial estates, these giant banker mansions just going on and on and on. And then CERN is also where the CIA also has a certain headquarters. And of course, they're trying to get this thing fired up. And this particle collider under France and Switzerland called CERN that could open portals and do a lot of other weird stuff. But Ghislaine Maxwell is said to have navigated a submarine from Lake Geneva through underground passages that exit near Genoa, Italy, into the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow.
So I have to ask, you know, and people, I'm sure, are wondering, the books that you've put together, how do you, when you do your research, where do you get such amazing information? Like, I mean, that's got to take years. And how do you do it?
Well, it does take years, and yesterday was my 57th birthday. So
yeah,
I might look younger than I really am, but I've traveled to all 7 continents, and just, I'm a collector of things, especially that of esoteric. So I'm just a voracious reader. I never watch TV. I never waste my time with mental popcorn type of thing. You know, once in a while, a date night with a girlfriend on a couch. Okay, I'll go for that once in a while. But for the most part, man, I'm just reading and going through stuff and listening to podcasts like your own, and always on the quest to learn. I have to say, I feel that it's a lifelong pursuit for me. And the more layers of the onion I pull off, the deeper the rabbit hole goes. So it's not like you're coming to any conclusion with a lot of this stuff. It just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Well, how about, you know, we talked about Ghislaine Maxwell, and a lot of people don't know that she and Jeffrey were obsessed with Atlantis. And you know, you look at the location of Epstein Island and Water Island, which a lot of people don't know is owned by the Bidens, just right around the corner, and like that whole area in the hot zone. Have you gone down the Atlantis rabbit holes yet?
Oh, you betcha I have. In the book Modern Esoteric, which is basically looking at all the esoteric traditions up to this modern age, including what's underneath the ocean. And there's fascinating archaeological sites below the ocean. Now, you tell me, how do you actually carve stone? How do you build pyramids like off the coast of Cuba? How do you carve the Yonaguni monument off of the southern islands of Japan? You don't. This is from an antediluvian civilization going back a long time. And the same would go with the continent of Atlantis, just the most recent of the many civilizations that once existed. There was Lemuria before that, and then long ago, we were talking millions of years, Hyperborean. So there have been high-tech civilizations that have existed on this planet, albeit with much fewer numbers of people. But Edgar Cayce speaks about the time in Atlantis when there were humans living in these high-tech cities, and they had to be situated above the jungles because there were still dinosaurs roaming. And the order of the day is, what are we going to do with all these big reptiles? We can't go down there and farm or anything. And so part of it was clearing this planet of the reptilian ground creatures. And as we know, there are many species that are still related to dinosaurs in the world today. But it was a much wilder planet back then, according to Cayce, and much warmer and more humid. That's why you find ferns and other tropical plants, as well as dinosaur species that have only been discovered in Antarctica, proving that it was once a steaming jungle. And I was just down there 3.5 years ago, you guys, on a sailboat. And I'll tell you, it's just a frozen wasteland, basically, if you want to call it that, because it's unusable to modern humans to try to live on the ice. So right now, when it's winter down there, there's only 1,000 humans on the entire continent. And this is the fifth largest continent of the world. So this whole notion that we're so grossly overpopulated, Antarctica can absorb a couple million. They got the room.
And that's just the surface. Imagine.
Yeah. Try going underneath. There's some warm climate.
Right. Yeah, well, we wanted to go a little bit into Antarctica and what's going on in the current financial situation with Brad Garlinghouse and Christine Lagarde.
Well, I mean, we go back to, Obama made his visit. I mean, I don't know. I don't need to enumerate all the A-list politicians and celebrities and so on that have gone there, but obviously it has a high degree of significance with these folks. And then, we get Garlinghouse
from Ripple,
and Schwartz, right, the CEO of Ripple, meeting up with Christine Lagarde and formerly from the IMF and Klaus Schwab, and that was kind of a freak out moment. What do you have to say about that? What do you think?
That was a couple months ago.
Yeah,
to give your listeners a little refresher on all this. That was lighting up all over the place. And one of my great colleagues, Dr. Michael Sala, does the Exopolitics report. He'll be at that Orlando conference that we're all speaking at in October too. It'd be great to catch up with him. So he has done quite a bit of released information about Antarctica and some books as well. So he's kind of one of my go-to guys. And when I was going down there about 4 years ago, when I was planning this trip, I asked him, where should I go along the Palmer Peninsula that's any kind of paranormal hotspot or anything you know about? And he got back to me and he said, try to get down to Rothschild Island. And that is the location where all of them just went. Yes, there's a Rothschild Island just below the Antarctica Circle. And on the mainland, just across the channel, is the Rockefeller Plateau. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Wow.
I'm picturing
they name themselves after the places too.
I'm picturing the set of Prometheus, when I think of where they're going to go meet there. You familiar with the?
And the Black Goo
race
in the movie Prometheus. And that's off of Southern Thule Island, which I also talk about in my Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica conference presentation. And that is what the Falkland Islands was all about. We think that, remember in 1982, you guys about the same age as me, we were all watching on TV, here come the Brits. They're going to go get the Falkland Islands and they're bringing nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers. Like, what? There's like a few thousand people there and 10 times as many head of sheep. What are they going down to the southern tip of South America to get the Falkland Islands? Well, you can even go to Wikipedia and see that attack formation split into two. And the real mission was to take the South Sandwich Islands. It's a string of islands that go right off of, not too far off the coast of Antarctica. And the southernmost island's called Southern Thule Island, Thule.
Yeah.
And that's where the actual surrender of the Falkland Wars was signed right off the scientific base. It was just 8 scientists holding up a white flag. We surrender, don't kill us. And they were studying the Black Goo, which has been stored in a cave there because it's a frozen tundra all year round. And the Brits took that black goo back to the UK and tried to backward engineer it and use it in their super soldier program, and it backfired on them and it got away from them. So in the late 80s, mid and late 80s, you get all these mysterious scientists dying in London that were working with Marconi Laboratories. Some of them, like Max Spears, with black stuff coming out of their mouths and orifices and all these other parts. So they got hit by this black goo, or it got in their body. It's kind of like the graphene oxide or Morgellons. It's just rapidly going out of control, and it'll eventually kill you or drive you crazy. And so this stuff has been released on humanity. And this is something else, very esoteric subject that I speak about. And it's kind of like as a warning, because I want people to be aware that this artificial life form has been released in the world today. And there are even samples that have been collected by Sophia Smallstorm and others, Dane Wigington, finding these Morgellon fibers, which have a lot to do with the black goo in what they're spraying on us.
And it's in the jab as well, right?
Got it. So this is an anti-human depopulation agenda that is being rolled out in the last couple of years. And unfortunately, we're still in the beginning phases of it. This is meant to go all through the decade until 2030. And that's when the World Economic Forum says, you'll own nothing and be happy. So they want to have this as a wrap in 7.5 years and be done with it. And whoever survives, you're going to be completely dependent on them, because everything will have moved to the chip, or they can control you through the graphene oxide / Morgellon / AI. That is what they're trying to set up right now, is this control grid over the whole planet to control everybody who survives this.
Well, do you see it going in that direction, or do you feel that that's going to be defeated?
Well, we're going to defeat it because we know about it, right? That's why interviews like this are really important for you guys to, and your audience, to just start understanding and know what they're festooning upon us right now. And look at this as a self-defense, that you have to protect yourself and your family. So for me, detox has now become a lifelong pursuit. I don't see it ever ending, because they're just hitting us with so much crap that we got to get out of our bodies. And once you do start getting it out of your body, you start feeling pretty good too. But you got to know some of these detox modalities to be able to incorporate it into your life. But I'll give you a couple quick, simple ones. Love to have my morning coffee, right? Coffee's by nature an acidic drink. It's not good. It'll create candida and yeast overgrowth. And we put milk in it and other things like that. But if you put a little bit of baking soda on your morning coffee, you can make it an alkaline drink, and it's actually good for you.
Wow.
So there's little things you can do in your everyday life. And I also put a little diatomaceous earth in there that you don't really taste. Like the first cup on the last sip, swirl it around and do a shot. You can, it's most palatable to take it in that way. But if you do like a half a scoop of diatomaceous every day, what that'll do is get into your gut. And that's where a lot of the Morgellons and the other things are forming, in the stomach and the intestines. And that's how we're getting syndromes like leaky gut syndrome, where we're just leaking out of our body. I had a very dear friend of mine pass away a couple months ago from internal bleeding as a result leading to this. So many people are suffering now from leaky gut, and what the diatomaceous earth will do is clog up those openings and start to restore the natural bioterrain of your intestinal system. And I speak from experience. I'm doing the exact same thing. I do 4 as religiously as I can. I wake up in the morning, I've got a wand, like a Tesla wand, to help anything on my skin, and stuff is living on our skin like you wouldn't believe.
Wow.
And then I go for a jog for 3 miles on the beach. I like to do it barefoot, kind of earthing. And then I do my infrared sauna, a 1-seater, and just sweat it out. And boy, the stuff that comes out from an infrared sauna, you got to believe it with your own eyes when you see gray stuff on the towel when you get up. Wow. Take a shower. And then in the evening, I've got a Theragun, like a massage gun, and I kind of go all over my body with it. And it just feels good. And it helps break up that sludge in the gut and get that flowing through too, because we don't realize how much of the food supply has been tainted and it works against us. It'll just stay in your gut for a long time. And so people do colodics or enemas are a way to clear out, and you can do cleansing. This is what I mean. It's a lifetime pursuit, guys. And
Right.
We got to start doing these things because we've just been hit from cradle to grave with all these poisons. That's why we're living in this prison planet. It's not that the earth isn't a beautiful gem of a planet, and it is. It's the construct of our mind that have been set up to keep us in this prison planet. And so this is how we get out of it, because the revolution is consciousness. The more you can understand this stuff and start taking a self-defensive posture against everything they're hitting us with, the better you're going to feel, the longer you're going to live. And I think the happier in life you'll be as well.
Real quick, I think that's why we felt compelled to do this, is because, as I tell this to my mom, who I had to really fight for to not get the jab, and same with Scott, most people are good people and they want to help other people. But when you start learning this stuff and the depravity and the parasites, which is that's another rabbit hole, you just can't believe that the earth is the way that it is. And so I thank you for talking about that, because we don't know to the extent that they've went out of their way to make this what is a gem of a planet in some ways, but is, you start learning what's going on, your mind's blown that there are really entities out there that have the worst case scenario for us in mind. And we're truly in a battle of good and evil. And with that, I know that someone's going to say something. So, yeah.
Oh, I've got a million thoughts going. I wanted to tell you about the ileocincal valve, where your large intestine and small intestine meet. That's usually where the leaky gut syndrome begins.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And it becomes herniated, and you can reach up under your rib cage here, and on a fairly regular basis, and kind of relieve that, and you'll feel it if you haven't done it in a while. You get up there and really pull down, and it creates some separation there, and it relieves that herniation.
Oh, good tip. Thanks.
Yeah.
See, we're learning every day, and this is what's good about sharing information,
coming
right?
together and talking. Yeah, that's the whole goal.
But when he mentioned, we talked about a virus, and we talked about, well, we haven't talked about an anti-parasitic drug that happened to be really effective against a virus. Now that's not supposed to happen. What's going on there?
Starts with an I and ends in vermectin.
Yeah, I got some down in Mexico in May. You go to a pharmacy and buy it, but it's illegal here. I had a shipment confiscated by the FDA.
Oh wow!
6 months ago. Yep.
Was it a dawn raid on your house? Did they?
No, they just intercepted the parcel coming in from India.
Wow.
And, I even got the letter from the FDA. It's classic. And I got a call from the guy. I wish I would have ripped him a new one. Really, like, what are you doing, man? You working for the devil? Is that cool? You sleep good at night, knowing you're just taking this Nobel Peace Prize winning drug and medicine away from people who maybe it's not even because of this CV scam, but it's good for all pathogens and parasites, and you're just taking that away. Yeah, is that cool to you? It's not to me. But I wanted to get my package, so I kind of sweet talked him, but nothing worked, and I did get a refund from the pharmacy. And then the next pharmacy, they had to disguise the package to make it look like they were sending me CD-ROMs or something, like technology in the mail from some guy's personal address. Did not say Grant Pharmacy or anything else. So, but you go down to Mexico, just cross the border, which I did in May. I went down to San Felipe, every pharmacy, HCQ, IV meeting, and a bunch of other really good stuff, including colloidal silver. That's getting hard to buy. And I got a bunch of just little bottles of concentrate, colloidal silver, which I also put in my fluoride-free drinking water and fluoride-free toothpaste. I mean, this is preaching the choir, but I think you guys know that fluoride's nothing but rat poison, and it calcifies our pineal gland. That's another way they keep us in this prison planet. The longer they keep us from knowing of our true power and potential, the longer they can keep us trapped here. But as people learn this and decalcify their pineal and start becoming more aware of their, what I describe as superhuman abilities, it's game over for them. We'll see right through them. You can't lie in this new frequency, because everybody's going to be able to read your aura. And I would even say the courtrooms in the future will be reading people's auras, whether they did a crime or not. Forget about lie detector tests. That's the easiest way. And you can tell just to average people on the street, next time you're out there, you could just walk by and say, probably a good person. Ooh, that person, speed addict or something. Yeah. Ooh.
Well, I've noticed, in a lot of conversations with just about anybody, intuitive capacity is really coming online for a lot of people. They're starting to get a lot of input. They're starting to have memories, that are pretty out there. But this seems to be a trend that's affecting an awful lot of people right now. And I don't know, that excites me. It feels like we're really moving towards, the goal.
That's a great awakening. Right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
People waking up on a personal level. And look, everybody's at a different pace. I know I'm very, very far behind David Icke, and he's probably behind the great master Babaji in the Himalayas. And so there's many, many layers and levels that you get to in this awakening. But the important thing is first to understand that you are a sovereign human being. You have free will, and you make the ultimate decision what you decide to put in your body or not. End of story. Hard stop.
Well, and I think that's why when people realize the amount of evil that's been in the world, they're going to think, for the comp, like my mom or the layman, that just thinking, well, if there's a God, why would that God allow this to happen? Can you go into a little bit on that?
I have a really good friend who's a nurse at Stanford University and has been fighting tooth and nail not to get that thing. And it's like a weekly battle whether she's even going to have a job or not. But she works in the maternity ward, and just the horror stories telling me about the stillbirths that are coming out now, and even how even before the whole thing that there would be a baby that was only alive for a few hours or a few days, and people, the parents, would just cry and be like, how could God be so cruel? But every one of us, including a child who lives a mere matter of hours, she was explaining to me, every one of us has a life contract. And we all know those contracts are going to expire sometimes. So maybe that child just had a few moments just to be close to that parent again and leave them with some kind of message or with some kind of love. And I do believe in reincarnation and past lives. I've had experiences abroad that are so unique. It's like my fingerprint that I know it's real because I felt it. And I knew my way around Pompeii the very first time I was there in Italy, covered with a volcano. Yeah, about 2,000 years ago. Knew where the Colosseum was, and knew where the Forum was this Australian guy. And hey, let's go this way. I want to show you something. Like I knew the place, and I did. So from that point on, I started having a lot of past life recalls. And as I've traveled to many places abroad, I just go to some old medieval town in France or something, be like, I know this place, and get all the goosebumps again. Because people didn't travel much. You often would just live within a 20-mile radius as far as you could ride a horse or a mule. That's your entire life in a 20-mile radius in a small town in France. And you probably only lived to 40 or 50. So we go through a rapid succession of lifetimes if you've been on this planet, if you're an old soul like me. But I also remember stuff off planet too. And that's my preference to go through after all this. That's my escape from prison planet.
But it's kind of a funny story. Joe's dad and my mother had a phone conversation. Joe and I have been hanging out, great friends for years. We found out that our grandfathers lived within 40 kilometers of one another, and they came over on the boat to America at exactly the same time. The odds are they knew each other.
Sure.
I just, that one kind of blew me away. Thought that was kind of interesting.
What town did they go to? Or
it was Calabria.
California?
Between Bari and Calabria. Oh, where did they go?
Yeah.
Well, they came through Ellis Island. And
my grandfather came up to the Northwest and worked on the railroads and was in charge of a lot of up in the Auburn area. And I'm not sure where did your family originally?
Upstate New York.
Oh, New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, just what are the odds? It was kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Small world, lonely planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know we can go on for a long time. We'll probably have you back. We're approaching about an hour, and I like to kind of keep it in that ballpark for now as we navigate our podcast. But I know we want people to be able to point people in the direction to find your books and any information on you. So please feel free to go over that and anything you want to say in closing. So we'd love to have you go over that, please.
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me on. Boy, an hour went by quick.
I know.
You look at your watch. Wow, an hour. Yeah. So if people want to know about me, what I'm up to, my various projects, including I produced an event in San Francisco called the How Weird Street Fair. It's coming up on October 15th. Howweird.org for that. That's me working behind the scenes. And then I speak at conferences, and that's me in front of the mic. And my conference schedule, still got 4 more this year, 2 in September, 2 in October. And then lining up in 2023. BradOlsen.com is my website where you can find out where I'm at. But all my books, including signed copies and other authors that I publish, is on cccpublishing.com. And people can go there and order a book and get a signed copy. They come out of my office. If it's one of my books, I'll sign it for them.
One more question, and our audience may or may not know this, but Brad's kind of a modern day Indiana Jones. Lots of just spectacular expeditions. What's next? Or do you have any expeditions planned, or any that you're just thinking about?
I just got a 60,000 mile credit card that just. So I got like 90,000 miles. Might just if things really hit the fan, I basically know where to go to disappear for years at a time. If I have
a submarine.
Yeah, right. Is Lane Maxwell, let me borrow her.
Yeah, she's not using it anymore.
Southeast Asia or somewhere else.
Yeah, she'll never use that again.
Yeah, probably not. Let's hope not. If there's any justice in the world.
Yeah.
But what's up for me? So I got a couple conferences. I'm going to be going to Boulder in September for Gaia-Sphere, and then the Orlando one in October. Those are the last 2 big ones. And then another one in Mount Shasta. Yeah. And also in September. Maybe you guys pop down for that one.
Yeah.
It's really great to be, and we're going to do an expedition on the land.
Oh, wow.
Afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, we should do
with
that.
people that know, including Lowell Johnson's. I know where his area was, where he went and got into Talos.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
Those are the best parts of the whole.
That'll be mid-September, and then I'm going to head up to Portland, see some friends. My girlfriend's up there, and then I fly in and out of there to go to the Gaia-Sphere conference too. So kind of be up your guys' way. Maybe we can do a show live.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Yeah, we're
Please
up to
let
it.
us know. We'd love to.
Yeah. Well, we'll be in touch. You always have that essence of the vibe of California every time we talk to you. So my dad was really into the Beach Boys and I don't know, the coast. And so, yeah, it's great chatting with you and having met you actually in California. So anything in closing before we bid farewell for the evening?
Yeah, I just want everybody to be real optimistic that we're going to pull through this. And it's really all of us and our mental capacities focusing on the future that we want to see. And this is the most extraordinary time to be alive and to be in an age like us where we can do things in these physical bodies. So anybody who's losing hope, and I occasionally get some people come up to me at conferences and stuff and say that I just want to check out. I can't handle this prison planet anymore. And I don't blame them, but I'd say you can't take your own life. You just can't. And if not only to hold a space for this future, this 5D, and the speed bump called the Cabal is going to be out of the way. They're going to throw some dirty tricks at us, and always be prepared, like the Boy Scout motto, but don't cave into fear. We got this. We're the ground crew on planet Earth, and we're Team Humanity, and we're going to see this through, and it's going to be the most glorious, epic party when it's all said and done. So hang in there, everybody, and let's do this thing.
Love it.
Wow, what a beautiful closing statement. All right. Thank you, everybody. And that's Brad Olsen with an E, and we'll put your links below. Send any links to us you want. So,
Always
all right.
a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks,
all
Brad.
right. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Cheers.